Welcome to our first Vocarium event of the season. Vocarium literally means a library of voices, or as Brenda Hillman might put it, the voice of the age is the voices. I have the pleasure of being friends and neighbors with this evening's introducer, Fanny Howe, who is friends in turn with both of our honored guests this evening. No, this is not a clique. I mention these interrelations in my opening remarks because tonight's authors share in a commitment to increasing our capacity for kinship within and beyond our chromosomal kind and chronological conceptual confines. They are dedicated to a becoming with each other, to quote environmental thinker Donna Haraway, a deep, combinant, polytemporal embrace that extends beyond our bounded notions of individualism. Number is in the individual, writes Hillman, citing Baudelaire, I think, as she rubs the sticks of relation and shines a light on overlooked modes of meeting and what Will Alexander has called invisible vicinities, intimate networks that other species, generations, life forms, and languages, vast and viral and vital, have forged. The body is the archive, writes Lewis, as she reflects on how all the forces of the making of the universe are present at any given moment in each person and radiating from their faces like pictures that only pour. Through a dexterous use of the analog tools of type and print photography, both authors speak to our common tangency. They seek to make real or to realize, to use the titular word from Robin's book, our manifold relations to the beings no longer and the beings not yet, as well as acknowledging our own fragile relatedness. Are my feet still related to my mind, as Etel Adnan once said? And at a time when many of us feel inundated by forces and, yes, even wars beyond our control, these two radically different authors show us discrete ways of restoring our agency, whether it be the gathering of activists or the dedicating of a poem to a friend, as Brenda does throughout her collection, tenderly facing each poem toward a specific, small specific you or a large general you, or the forging of a dialogue like Lewis's plaintive extended apostrophe to the explorer and photographer Matthew Henson, or designing a book in which the awesome darkness of the cosmos literally cradles a brief interval of light. Both authors model ways of constructing moments of intimacy within the vastness. I'd hoped to bring these two generative beings together tonight in this space and time, but thankfully the weave that is at the root of technology allows us yet more modes of meeting and togetherness, and Robin, whose travel plans just changed, has kindly agreed to appear via Zoom this evening. Before Fanny sets this weave in motion, I wanted to thank both of our authors tonight for using this art form of ours to truly attend to the unattended. I find them such tremendous models of how to teach what it means to learn, to speak what it means to listen, to show what it means to see, and to wholly receive another being. Please join me in welcoming them and the one and only Fanny Howe.
Such an amazing introduction, Christina. I consider it great good fortune to be introducing these two poets who have little in common. You found great. But the reason it all becomes clear the longer you spend with the two poets, the more it becomes clear that everything everybody is writing is in some way in the same mental state, although often not as bad as mine. I've been scribbling and scrolling. So I was going to start by introducing Robin Coste Lewis. If she'll read first, and then Brenda, both from California, one south, one north, both lovers of photography and poetry. I don't want to give a prolonged introduction to such active and distinguished poets. And really, for me, the little being at the center for my being here is because Robin and I have 2 children in common. My grandson and her son, who played together for several years in Los Angeles. And that just sort of overrides other thoughts. Under the arc of visual art, so impressed by it, she has in a way let it lead her on her intellectual journey, is Robin. So those of us who are obsessive moviegoers, these pages of still images capture what holds us in movement and provides us with a new vocabulary. I love watching things move away and disappear, but I also love the dereliction of old and fragile photos. They seem to be related to fingerprints and templates of wings and insects in a glass case. Their shapes are gestures in captivity. We can examine them one by one, then read them, with each scratch revealing time, place, atmosphere. These are family photos that Robin has assembled in her beautiful book. But she gives us herself as something seen emerging with her family at all stages of life, human, always only human. She covers the decades, identifiable by the clothing worn, the background housing in the 1950s America. The cars are the only house pets we see. There are many smiling faces, but many more unsmiling and focused on the camera as a stranger in the house of the shot, inside and out. Strikingly good-looking people, Robin's people, show no signs of extreme economic hardship, and in the poetic accounts of their lives, not told directly, but in a very well-mannered, respectful tongue, as if from a shy speaker. Lovely brief quotes. One especially from Toni Morrison that really puts the arrow in the target when thinking about Robin's work. I see her completely in the shadow, the shade, in the comforting shade of Toni Morrison. And who wouldn't be? So her first collection, Voyage of the Sable Venus, won even a National Book Award among many other books. They are strange because of the presence of the between in everything. It's all shadow, not so much sharp edges. She was so under the arc of visual art that this has become her path through this awful country. So anyway, these, as I was saying, they are to me like, what are those boxes called where they keep specimens of butterflies and, what are they called? Someone knows. Vitrines, exactly, which sounds too much like a latrine to want to remember. Anyway, this is the beauty of the book that Robin has put together, is it actually is art as science. And it, to me, is a new path. It forges a new path for the poet and for the scientist, too, to present their thoughts. Brenda has always written poems and prose with deep attention to single words and their laws, yet the sentences are fragile and historical, like the elastic spring of a daisy stem. Wikipedia can tell you a lot about her persistent, distinguished place in our nation's poetry. She is a feminist with a young voice, what they call a young soul. Her new collection of poems, in a few minutes before later, her lyrical thinking is accompanied by tiny photographs. Guess what? People seem to be thinking the same way. Close your eyes and listen to the tunes of her words. They are what Robert Creeley called good-natured. Her struggle in defense of the lyric is a protection of what our bodies carry through a perilous world. And so the great eruptions of the natural around us are like the applause of the gods. She has won many prizes for her writing and its consciousness of the American struggle to both preserve and dismantle our wretched history. Hillman has been a guardian of the poetic life through her own work and her teaching of others at St. Mary's College in Oakland, and her writing, her experiments in poetics. She is a Californian in the varieties of her vistas and politics, truly inexhaustible attention to other people's work, always. She's also an influencer. So there we are. Okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm very, very honored to be here. I cannot believe that I am being introduced by the Fanny Howe, also known as Goddess Extraordinaire Genius. I am a big, huge devotee of the Fanny Howe cult and hope to be all my life, so it's an honor. And also Brenda Hillman. Goddamn, I can't believe I'm not there. I am also such a huge fan of yours. And so I just hope both of you know that I feel like I'm bowing down to both of you. And I don't know what great fortune landed me here to be reading in your company. So it's a great honor. Thank you, Harvard. Thank you, Christine. Thank you to this amazing reading series. As some of you might know, I'm an alum, and I spent a lot of my time at Harvard translating Sanskrit, Wright and Widener. I spent all of my time at Harvard and Widener translating Sanskrit. And so it's just so ironic that I would then give up all of my archaeology, anthropology, epic research to then become a poet. And I spent so many years right next to Emily Dickinson's desk and didn't even know it. So it makes me sad, but at the same time, it's kind of perfect. So whenever I get to come back, it is very, very special for me, as is this evening. So thank you to everyone. I am going to read a few selections from my new book, To the Realization of Perfect Helplessness. The first thing I'm going to read is the preface, which is untitled. The first boy came from the ocean. Son 2 crawled through a hole in her signature. My sister arrived just after him, looking like she'd been pelted by a storm. Then another sister, both came and didn't come. The body arrived, but she went elsewhere. Where? I snuck in next, taking up home inside her salty red grave. And here I became alive and suspicious. The title of the book, To the Realization of Perfect Helplessness, is taken from an extraordinary voyage memoir of the incredible Arctic explorer, Matthew Henson. Matthew Henson was African-American, and he went to the Arctic 6 times. He began as Commander Perry's cabin boy, horrible colonial derogatory title. And over 23 years, he became the #1 person from the crew who accompanied Commander Perry on the Arctic exploration where they discovered the pole. Now, I know there's some controversy about whether Perry actually discovered the pole and other people. There was one other person. I don't really give a care about Commander Perry nor the other person. My focus is on Matthew Henson and the fact that there was this extraordinarily talented explorer, surveyor, photographer, huntsman. I mean, just you read when I read his memoir, it changed my life forever. He will always be one of my primary muses. For so many reasons. His personality, he's this bon vivant kind of, I don't even know. He's just extraordinary human being, and I highly recommend that if you haven't read about him, please do. And if you haven't read his autobiography, please do as well. Now, the thing that's really sad about Matthew Henson is he died very hungry. He was a parking attendant. Everybody else received a ticker tape parade when they got back from discovering the pole. It was just Perry, Henson, and 3 Inuit men. The penultimate trip, they had to eat their shoes. A lot of people died. People were constantly dying over 23 years, every expedition. People were constantly dying. They had to eat their shoes. It was a bad situation. And so there's lots of things that Henson's biography brought up for me. But one is what an incredible conceit the Arctic is in terms of race relations and colonialism. While I was doing research for this project, I actually began it at NYU with Yusef Komunyakaa. I fell in love. It brought me back exactly to my Harvard divinity days as a theologian, because I started reading solely theological works about the Inuit and Inuit colonization in Canada. I did not know, I wasn't taught how heinously First Nations were treated in Canada, and the mirroring effect of African colonialism and First Nation colonialism in the Canadian range. It was so profoundly similar, and so deeply, deeply. I don't know what to call it, because especially right now, it's profound to me how normative it is for human beings to treat each other with such violence and such hatred. And so I ended up reading for many, many years about the First Nations and primarily Inuit ethnic tribes in Canada. Before I then came back to Matthew Henson. And I wrote a long poem. I wrote many poems for it, and maybe one day those poems will be published. But one of the poems is a long poem called The Ark, Self-Portrait as Aphrodite Using Her Dress for a Sail. And it begins with an epigraph from Henson. And the title is taken from a moment where a boulder the size of a car, he says, hits his friend, the friend who's standing next to him, and knocks him dead. So this idea of mortality, of always being right in front of you and pulsing, and that you could die at any moment, every single day, every single hour, every single minute, was something that deeply attracted me too, not just the race relations of the Arctic, but also this kind of existential inquiry that we definitely don't expect, black men who are cabin boys of an explorer to have. But meanwhile, Henson's book is deeply philosophical. And so this is the epigraph. The effect of such storms of wind and snow or rain is abject physical terror due to the realization of perfect helplessness. So I'm going to read, the poem is very long. I'm just going to read some excerpts from it. What makes a child of 9 decide to sneak out of his home in the middle of the night and never return? How does a child understand that the world is as much her mother as the human being who gave birth to her? When does the child on the run begin to understand that the body is the womb? You, Matthew, you. You step out onto a road in Maryland, 1873. You are 9. Who are you, 9-year-old little boy, hiding behind trees from night riders, tying blankets around your shoes to keep the frost away? walking across a farm at night, knocking at a stranger's door, begging for food. Your mother, your poor mother, and now your father, dead too. Limwell, Caroline. 2. Early morning, still dark, I'm in a taxi. The most elegant tea Creole in the world is on the radio. I catch a sliver and think how one tiny word can be sacred, an artifact, the only green thing that returns inside the beak. Okra. We stop at a toll. It is just a toll like any toll, but I'm thinking we are all the children of migrants. None of us come from here. And I wonder if the toll taker ever imagined that one day it would be this black mask in the back seat or that red mask on the driver. The toll taker smiles. I smile. We all smile. It is 9 degrees outside. For a moment, I am underwater and I can't remember which city I am in. Not Boston, but London, Dublin maybe. Or maybe cities no longer exist. Maybe they are all beginning to shrink away, plane by plane, brick by brick. A woman lying dead on her couch for 3 years, watching television. And then, perhaps because I am suddenly unaware of which town I am in, or which town I will be in by evening, the thought to pass through my mind next is, and just what is so wrong with being destroyed? 3. God bless the cook who answers the back door and offers the child a cot. God bless that mother who thinks dusting off her hands, one more mouth under the roof won't matter that much. God bless the man who decides he will teach you everything he knows and then does every afternoon in his cabin on the ship for 5 years straight. God bless your first piece of white chalk. God bless the pregnant black slate. 4. A child was found, buried in a coffin. A child was found. Someone had placed a mask over her chest. On either side of her body was one man and one woman, also buried. The child was placed between their legs. At some point between AD 330 and 390, all three were placed together in the Ypuktiuk graveyard near Point Hope. 5. Quote, the earth is currently in an interglacial. The last glacial period ended about 10,000 years ago. All that remains of the continental ice sheets are the Greenland and the Antarctic ice sheets and smaller glaciers, such as on Baffin Island. End quote. Quote, in every culture, the oldest memory is water. End quote. Tell me again about the flood. 7. We went to sleep in a village, but awoke in the ocean. All the ice suddenly melted. The sea rose up and took all the land. We'd believed it was just a story old people told to frighten the children. A god whispered the warning through a reed in the wall. A man walking by heard his voice. There was a beetle. There was a buffalo. There was a midwife. We were told to shape the ship like the belly of a bird. We grew fins. We hid inside an egg. We turned back into clay. We sought out those who could control the waters. Not when. We moved the ship with words. To make sense of all the death, we convinced ourselves we were chosen. We learned to live in trees. There was a great turtle. We climbed onto her back. The raven was our compass. We threw oxen overboard as offerings. Were it not for the tree's tar, our ship could never float. There was a frog. It began to drink all the water. One day, a god got a bellyache and vomited up the sun. One day, we found a seashell on the peak of a mountain. Then the skylark came back, carrying a leaf of okra. 8. One day, I come out onto a street in New York. A very old man is on the sidewalk selling antique maps. I smile. I walk up to him. Sir, do you have any of the Arctic? His eyes look into mine more deeply now. For one quick second, we make love. The way strangers who are not really strangers, they just have never met before, touch each other deep inside with their eyes. Of course I do, darling, he says in a thick and gorgeous Urdu accent. But, he hesitates and holds up his index finger. I have only one. We smile at each other. We are suddenly in love, and we understand our whole love affair, from beginning to end, will take place right here between our words for only these few moments. I look at the map. On the small sheet of paper, there are 2 frames. The North Pole is on the top, the South Pole on the bottom. All the water is white. The scattered lands are green. Besides the fine black print, these are the only colors. In large bold letters across the middle of both poles is the word unexplored. Later, I will think, how like this map I am. The top and bottom of me, both so unknown. My most essential pivots, uncharted yet toggling in perfect geometry. My heart, a country called Greenland, yet always covered in ice. My brain, an Iceland, but greener than every sea. Prehistoric elephants embedded beneath my skin, along with carved ivory ornaments 10,000 years old that belonged to me when I was someone's wife during the last ice age. Always something in me freezing harder, while another part insists on melting. And then this equator in the middle of my body, so hot, so lush, I can visit, but only for a day. I buy the map. It is $15. The man and I smile at each other. His face is a whole flock of starlings, which suddenly alights upon me, bare winter tree. In 1 minute, we have lived 50 years together. In 1 minute, we have had 10 children. I've tended a goat and brought him a cup of its frothy milk. He's covered my head with a white muslin scarf, then stood beside me while we cremated my father. We've grown gray together. I have loved his body and mind thoroughly. I say goodbye. I rub red ochre into the middle part of my hair. I throw garlands of marigolds into his casket before the moment closes the lid. 9. Jonah ran away once. God appeared to him one night in a dream, begging him to warn yet another city that if the populace did not change its wanton ways, he would destroy it brick by brick. What is it with this God and his envious struggle with the metropolis? When Jonah woke up that morning, afraid, he dressed hurriedly, then ran far down to the sea. And yet, how I do adore that feeling of God hot on my heels. Jonah ran to the shore. God followed him. Then Jonah jumped on board a ship, so God became a terrible storm. He wanted Jonah. So Jonah hid below deck. The crew tried everything. Eventually, Jonah confessed it was his body that must pay the sacrifice. His friends did not want to believe it, but as friends go, of course, they eventually threw him into the sea. Jonah was then swallowed by a whale, and yet not until after 3 days of living inside her belly did Jonah cry out for intervention, dedicating his heart to the Lord. At that moment, the whale vomited Jonah out. There was a calm shore just waiting there, as it had always been. Jonah in Hebrew, Yonah in Tiberian, Ionis in Greek and Latin. In Arabic, his name, Yunus, means dove. 10. There was another Yunus, another dove who flew to find land and returned with grass and leaves in his beak, a Sufi dervish from Turkey who lived during the 13th century. He was one of the first poets to compose in the Turkish instead of the usual Persian or Arabic of his day. In other words, he composed in the tongue of his mother, using the same sharp diction as fairy tales. So beloved is he that from Azerbaijan to the Balkans, everyone claims to have the honor of harboring his grave. The mature ones are at sea. A lover is needed to take the plunge, a diver to bring up the pearl. We were dry, but we moistened. We grew wings and became birds. We married one another, and we flew. Which is to say, the moment I decided there was no such place as home, or what was once home no longer existed, that the continent of my family had been flooded, and the ice on which we had lived and thrived for generations had melted, and everyone was gone. Which is to say, the moment I admitted I was living on a vast mass of floating ice alone, the moment I accepted that, I began to feel better. I was dead, it's true, but I was happier. I stood on the new frozen shore, watching the light mingle with the ocean. Everyone had become water. Land was a story the old people had told to frighten the little children, to keep us from running off. 30. Or perhaps, I am just an upturned tree, all my roots earth-laden and bare. Perhaps I fell over so I could worship at the altars of birds. Or I am a harlequin fowl, speckled black, white, hiding safely in day or night. My eyelids are made of feathers so dark they throw off an emerald sheen. And here I am still, at home, bobbing on top of this endless white sea, batting my lashes toward every beacon on any remaining shore, ignited and burning brightly throughout all the black worlds. So the last poem I'm going to read is titled Navel, and it is from a section of the book that also includes photographs. Navel. We crawled out of her navel, one by one, then waited until we were all here. That lucid moment when the last wet child learned to stand, we began walking. We walked slowly. We took some time. We took more than that. When we began to grow hungry, some offered to turn themselves into animals. Smiling, they said, "Here, eat me." Others turned into water, rivers, trees. Some turned themselves to dirt so we could walk a path. We crept toward the edges, clawed and crawled to the top of the world, and there we clung. Instead of a mouth, a woman spoke through a vibrant yellow bill. Sometimes we visited the man on the moon. Sometimes he led us inside his house. Sometimes his transparent, hollow wife would dance. Later, when people asked us, "Where did you come from?" we could only answer, "Water." A whole language comprised of just one word. We walked onto the water. We built houses on the water. We had babies on the water. We sewed clothes made of water with needles made of ice. The night, so constant, changed us. The planets taught us a vocabulary without any alphabet. The trees began to walk. At night, the ocean glowed green from underneath. Our roofs were made of well ribs. Our lamps were stone that burned clear oil. And now I've turned my face into this page so we could sit here together again. And that's the end.
So much. Is that good, or can you hear me? No? I'm gonna lift it up then a little bit. Now can you hear me? Is that okay? Is that better? Oh. Emily fell on the floor. Thank you, Robin. That was gorgeous. Gorgeous reading. It's such an honor to read with Robin. And Fanny, thank you for the intro. Beautiful. Christina, thank you for the intro and for inviting us. And thank you all for coming. I know it's an extraordinarily difficult week. I want to acknowledge that we're all in a terrible time of suffering, and we don't know what to do with it. So don't have any big political statements to make, except that poetry sort of maybe can help a little bit with dealing with paradoxical states of the soul and holding a kind of doubleness in ourselves that maybe other states don't help with, but maybe we can hold two things at the same time and they can both be true. That's something I was thinking about today, and going farther into kind of mysterious states of human suffering. I'm going to start with a new poem from a book that I'm working on, which is about childhood. I had a very anxious and difficult childhood, and so it's taken me 11 books to get to writing about my childhood. Porcelain musician in a child's bedroom. And I want to dedicate my reading to a living friend, Luke Manand, who helped me go on writing in a difficult time, and to a friend who's passed on, Louise Glick. Porcelain musician in a child's bedroom. Who can tell you not to mourn the dust? If you want to mourn the dust, go right ahead. Or the afternoon light sending circles to kaolin feet, some music taken in, some not music taken in, or the Dresden, London, unknown by history or imagination maker who made her and died soon after, non-living that outlives the living. Oops, the critic said don't use abstractions. Or the 6 of carbons from the start of time, spinning as, not in, ceramic skin, the keyboard unchipped as of this writing. When the music lessons went less well, your mother settled for your writing. You could say settled like dust on porcelain. But dust, the noun and verb that is a thing and isn't, drifted. Its dreamy, abstract qualities sent off with a cloth till nothing said you had to or you didn't. A Halloween poem. Bob and I were driving up the coast of California from Santa Cruz, and we saw this, a field of pumpkins, and I'm not much of a Buddhist, but I had a thought that the pumpkins were just there, they didn't need me, and they had their eyes on the inside. So this is kind of a witch poem, actually. To spirits of fire after harvest. Between earth and its noun, I felt a fire. What does it mean by I, Mrs.? It means, and I quote, one of the vowels in the brain and some of the U's. We were interested in the type of thing humans can't know, interested in the kinds of think animals think, a rabbit or a skink. You Mrs. Skiltonianus, when autumn brings a grammar, wasps circle the dry stalks, and you can totally see through amber ankles dangling and dazzle under our Lord, the Son of Literature. Between noon and its noun, there were ridged and golden runes on pumpkins, bluish gourds in the fields, their white eyes lined up inside. Wait a sec. Please don't nail the door shut. The air is friendly and non-existent as Veronica's veil. Earth, don't torment your fool, your ambassador clown. Bring the X of oxygen and sex, a fox running sideways through present noon. And I edited a little Emily Dickinson, and her desk is right up there. So I thought I'd read one of her gothic-y poems for Halloween. One need not be a chamber to be haunted. One need not be a house. The brain has corridors surpassing material place. Far safer of a midnight meeting, external ghost, than its interior confronting that cooler host. Far safer through an abbey gallop, the stones a chase, than unarmed one's a self-encounter in lonesome place. Ourself behind ourself, concealed, should startle most. Assassin hid in our apartment be horror's least. The body borrows a revolver, he bolts the door, or looking a superior specter, or more. Sorry, it has a gun in it, but that's how it was. So I'm going to read through this book with a rotting orange on the front. Has 6 sections, and I'm going to read one, or in a couple cases, 2 poems from each section. So the first section is kind of about stress in daily life. I wrote a tetralogy of books about the Earth's elements, and now I'm working on a tetralogy of books about time, and this is the 3rd one. A slightly less stressful walk uphill. How do you hope to survive? And not just that, was it even the question? By midday, the fog was burning off. Screech and call beside the anyway. The parent osprey had gone out looking for the right fish. Did it fear stone? And bryophytes rested on the soil, as the soul might rest on the what-ifs. You were trying not to waste poetry's time on stupid questions. All the yous going along out there, tired, getting through meetings, never enough sleep even if you nap at the office, checking the phone, tiny electrons of joy, messages from large specific you, small specific you, large general you, pressure-filled colleagues whose healing had not occurred but still might. Tech certainly hadn't helped. Chlorpyrifos, cities eking out funds, people sleeping in tents with black and white dogs and children, racist prisons, you're getting numb to the list, growth in the service sector, women working 3 jobs, production of power, and that tone in the prophet voices when you call customer service growing slightly more officious. Suspecting the next downturn, you wake with nanominutes of stress built up overnight. Offshore breezes, fear of fires, mosses bunched near the small oaks. Did they fear stone? Women had experimented for centuries with too much cortisol, so now what to do, since doing was the problem. It was just mainly important to get through the day with the minutes moving roundly rather than lengthwise. Surely one note could be singled out. For example, the screech of the baby osprey and the nest waiting, heavy with proudlings. Perhaps a calm could be entered like cooked fog, or a monarch butterfly coming through looking like John Clare flying across the enclosures. On the other side of the highway, steel tubes of dairy trucks were grinding along, the milk sloshing beside that, the hope of the circular spirits bringing a map of formless order where a legendary love was taking place beyond your control. And the second section has to do with, and I'm supposed to do my own tech here. I just have one picture. And last time I read this poem, I brought the actual gas mask, but I didn't want to take it on the plane because I figured I'd get arrested. This is a prose poem. The second section in this book kind of has to do with my activist practices, which often involve poetry. Report on another encounter in nature. After the EPA began to unravel, some students and I went out to read what used to be called nature poetry at a shopping center wearing Russian gas masks we had purchased on the internet. The students were brave. We were surrounded by grassy hills with so-called invasive species. There was a little buzzing from the edge of the universe. We felt everything intensely. Phrases sliced through the minutes, then moved away through space. At the Safeway, a man came up to us, older white guy, and asked what we were doing there. I said we were reading nature poetry outdoors because of what was happening to the EPA. He said that he owned the Safeway and we would have to leave. I said we were part of an ecology class. I looked at his Volvo, its gas tank full of screaming dead animals from the Cretaceous, a warm geologic period of shallow inland seas, a phrase I've always found comforting. We moved our reading a few yards away to some not dirty western dirt full of not yet extracted minerals and the secret water I pray to. Poets can bring odd thoughts outdoors. We moved to another town and read there. The rubber tubes of our masks looked like the snouts of ancient anteaters dangling down over the pages or phones without being connected. At first, it was hard to see the poems through the scratched eye goggles, and then we got the hang of it. We wondered how the gas masks had been used before this, just practice for war or what, since they were sold on the web for $10 each. What happened to our interlocutor? How will he live out his days without poetry, with his features congested by fumes? If I knew his name, I would place it here in the poem instead of this text corrupter. Here is a little spell. We will not meet him again on this earth. We will not meet him on the stairs of hell. We will not meet him in a place unseen. We will not meet him in a wishing well. There are books and beauty where we dwell. We will love each other in a dream. That's where we moved to, over on the dirt. And then we moved, let's see, is there one more? No, I guess it's not working. Oh, there it is. Then we moved to that's me holding the EPA sign. The masks are really surprisingly comfortable, except that you can't read through them very easily because the eye part is very scratchy. So I'm going to turn that off. Let's see, will it go off? Oh, there it went off. So in the third section, which is devoted to women, I'm going to reach way under and get this water. There's a poem called History of Punctuation on the Face. And I'm going to read this poem. It's got all the punctuation off to the side, and it's about my face. We love punctuation. We love it. It takes about 4 minutes to read this poem. We love punctuation. We love it on our faces, between our eyes, the commas on pages, slashes, and virgules, by the noses, the deeper ones called smile lines, the history of punctuation on our faces, the not smooth, now colonized landforms. Try agelessskinrevolution.com, an internet pop-up says between the news. Botox could fix your punctuation, and we don't want service worker bacteria injected into our skin, some of our sisters said, naming the wrinkles after the drier years. The history of punctuation in the West, men were reading silently. Women didn't read, of course. They were accompanied by the lyre and strings. Construction workers do not whistle anymore because of punctuation on my faces. When I think of the invention of signs, when we think of interpunct, the small plump dot made reading easier, we welcome extra punctuation over time. Women sat up high in the arena, no signs for when the gladiators killed, and on the wrinkled earth an animal. The interpunct kept pace, and thus the scribes began their sense of inner pacing. At what level did experience begin? Thus began the sense of interfacing. At what degree do Botox creatures stretch marks designed to make reading easier? Weakness happens when the muscles fall. They invented the dimple and the period. At the Grand Canyon, we saw wrinkles up and down from the Precambrian. What's so bad about granite wrinkles? What's so bad about punctuated women? The parenthesis was added later. Grief Botox may cause side effects. We don't accept a corporate account of our skin. We do accept the long Precambrian. The feldspar in the West, the punctuation in the texts, monks placed marks in surviving manuscripts, mostly not coming from the author. Aurelius noted he had inserted marks. Others appeared in the 4th century, not hopeless, only adding pauses, metamorphic commas on the faces. Marks had been inserted to show forces, the dimple with 1 dot of traces. The asterisk appeared medievally, the punctus exclamativus, and then human surprise had been invented. Experience on our faces, and once when we were hiking down into the Precambrian granitic structures, huge Vishnu complex, we had extra experience. A reader suddenly allowed to put the marks in. The printer made the right to put emotions in. When he left her, the punctuation deepened. Only some languages develop commas, some faces, some agreements, and time makes other lines within the sense of sense. He started leaving her when she grew Precambrian around the eyes. He was very going to leave her, then he did. Another started naming wrinkles after times. She named them Valley of the M, Heartbreak, Budget, Protest, App. When you see an older woman on the street, a reading of her beauty starts. No stretching skin. Smile lines built like the Precambrian. Older ground becomes so rich and rare. After Botox, she couldn't whistle well. Zoroaster granite igneous intrusions, the corporation needs our shameful self. In her divorce, the wrinkles deepened, individual wrinkles named for lovers, young and older writing, adding time to it, the commas of pure pleasure. After great pain, the Precambrian. Some sense in the experiment grew, the pattern of pure pleasure grew, the measure of text is not pre-death. What is your favorite form of punctuation? My favorite form is the almost pause, to have some extra time around the dream, not dream of youth, poor Botox creatures chained into our friend. Oh, semicolon, why hatred of old women, not of earth? Why no hatred of old canyons? Why no hatred of the valley? Why hatred of the women doing nails and women eating, teaching, nursing babies, walking, talking, bent like commas? Why do the aging women apologize till they can barely even talk? Asked the semicolon, and it said, don't be ashamed of your skin. I asked the comma, and it said, don't be ashamed of your eyes. I asked the virgule, the parenthesis, the dash, the tilde, the umlaut, the macron. They said, don't be ashamed, shame, shame, shame. I asked the ellipsis and the period, the exclamation and the question mark, to read the human woman's face, and the sign said, take your time. The pauses bent and heard, as did the quartzes and the cracked feldspar faces of the canyon. There are the marks and runnels and rivulets, scratches and exiles, skin, sex, age, capacities. Oh, quartz, ah, granite, basalt, lava, faces stay with you. They remember you. They make signs with laughter. Old women, we remember you. Remember the wrinkles under the cities. The faces ours, full of pain, dots and lines and whines, faces loved in suffering and gladness over all the earth. So I'll read two poems from the fourth section, which is entitled, For Writers Who Are Having Trouble, which is all writers. So the two poems I'm going to read are dedicated to Louise Glick. A feeling right before the feeling. At sunrise, the deer eat pieces of the quiet. They eat spaces between the quiet and the sounds. And the numbers on the calendar lie flat in their boxes. They leak through tiny holes in the minutes, evenly so evenly, an active sense before the sense was made. There now, opposite to set down, the agreed upon, the shape of the obvious, drawn by an earlier enchantment, before the new anxiety set in. The workers are safe, the terror stilled for an hour, a lover's outline, dreamed or imagined, before you read the one-page book again. What was that book? It had no copyright. And what was before? A life, the dazzler, the dark, the singing dust. It turned when you turned. It Orpheus knew what you forgot when you took the bowl of burning time across the room. And if the previous is closer to you now, should you look? It doesn't matter if you do. You carry the sum of it with it out into it. Louise was having trouble writing, and I said, well, try to think of the feeling you had before the feeling. So that's where that poem came from. This poem was in the New Yorker, which means your dentist reads it. That's the only time your dentist reads your poems is when it's in the New Yorker. So it started with a memory, actually, of being in Israel. Of crouching under a rock, and I wanted to read it today because of what's happening. Winter song for one who suffers. The stars stand up behind the day. A known dove balances on its claw at the window. A cosmic incident of darkness has begun, and a mild excess of beauty will be offered to the dead, which they will eat. On a hill, the wise man serves the people. Your thought splits in half when he speaks of the old revolts, the return of apocalypse, motive, and advancement. A soul can crouch a long time while the heart expands to reach its edges. What is missing past the glitter of the harvest? Friend, you chose to live. How? You did. So many choices, not just two, encrypted behind the mystery of the sun. Then the hurt was set aside, indeterminate chaos called in by love. During the COVID, the first year and a half of COVID, I was trying to track the number of cases every day. And I was studying the history of sort of people's idea of the apocalypse. So I'm going to read two of the poems from this fifth section. They're short, and they have little drawings in them. And then the number of the cases when I began the poem and the number of the cases when I finished the poem is at the end of each piece. Little breath circles across town. I thought I saw a man bent over, but it was a road sign. I thought I heard deploying data management systems, but it was just sounds in the mind. Dr. L woke early, breathed, and put on a blue sheath. Dr. M woke on Earth, logged in, and counted a fringed flight of numbers. Some woke old and alone, and when they died, they were ours. Unprecedented was our word. C closed the shop, and the books read to each other as we have written, the data-driven. The yellow dress left in the laundry recalled its one body, and the single lemon on a branch hung like a Wednesday. Radiance, what is your intention? We lit a single candle, not 12, and the world soul floated over the bored children with their handhelds and the adults with their beasts and their own apocalypse, while the sickness passed by, going the other way in a yearning chorus of fragments. Intention, what is your intention? Wasn't there meaning among the jeweled threads? A, C, G, T. You can buy RNA sequencing kits online for $4,000 US. We could hear the great dead with fires far off. We could hear the ones we love, the singing flame. March 20, 2020, 258,003. April 29, 2020, 3,127,519. There's a little picture of a wasp hive in this poem. The hive interrogates the helpless hum. Dawn force, then some numerals. You saw near here a wasp hive in a tree, a mummy head, 12 brown holes with legs dangling from its paper world, like the light in the mind hidden, as it often is, like a wide unseen pushing past the ego. What was the humming hive thinking? Your friend was trying to stay sober going to meetings online. She said, there is an it is, and it isn't lonely. The wasp hive swung like a lantern of here you are. If Hildegard saw 1,000 eyes in the tent, surely you can know another person. June 21, 2020, 8,954,471 cases. And I'll read one more poem from the book. It's from the last section, and I was thinking about long love during we have a lot of packing to do for if we get red alerts in the Bay Area to move out quickly in case you're getting wildfire in your backyard. And so I wrote a series of poems about long love. During an enchantment in the life, do you love a living person absolutely? Tell them now. In a half unwieldy life you made, under the hyaline sky, while the dead drank from the zigzag pools nearby, if they saved you in your wild incapacities, in timing of the world's harm, in a little pettiness in your own heart, while others took your madrigals in shreds to a tribunal, when others said you should feel grateful to be minimally adequate for the world's triple exposure or some tired committee. The ones who love us, how do they break through our defenses? We're tired today. Come back later. Their baffled voices melting our wax walls with a candle. The ones who understand what being is, the glowing, the broken, the wheels, the brave ones. They have their courage. You have yours. When you meet the one you love, it is so rare. When you meet the one who loves you, it is extremely rare. And I'll close with, I'm going to read kind of a short poem about heaven. And then I'll read one more poem. Childhood Eternity during Science Class Fragment. The child opened the science book. Of course there is a place no one sees. Inside that place, another place. Inside that place, an unknowable realm. She was shy. Not saying too much about this seemed truer, she thought. She smoothed the wrinkles off the book. On the steel-rimmed desk, a little stain from the previous child on the shellacked wood. Her task was to stay tethered here on Earth for them long enough, then taken back secretly like an overdue library book. It's a little poem about heaven for Emily. I was going to read a little longer poem, but I think I'm not going to. I'm going to read a shorter poem for my mother. I just saw my mother, and she's living in Princeton. She's got dementia, and she has left her home in Tucson, Arizona for good. And I go back to the home, and I stand in the garden, and I think about her work there. So thank you so much for coming tonight, and for your attention, and for your own poetry. And, let's keep love in our hearts, and just keep our capacities for empathy and understanding in this wretched time as huge as possible with our imaginations. This is called Tamiko Rise Under Our Mother's Garden. It's an eco-poetry poem. That's what they call me sometimes, as an eco-poet. Hyphal tubes, symbionts, exudates, glomalin proteins, pre-soil, prevent the leaking out. Fluttered root tips of padded prickly pear, sand under anxious days, enzymes, gill ghosts, patched necromasses under her clothesline, keep spirit close. Beneath feldspar, red-bowled mica, nets of roots, fate kept not death, fungal sheets steady there. Abiotic mediators ones toward all, crawling now, whirred open cells, Pleistocene enriched molecules where rhizospheres stayed still. Days of salts, stomata, pores in leaves, dirt with furry prizes, turned to zero clouds where chores were done, to branch near places she had moods, mendings, sewed buttons on. Ectomycorrhizal fungi mend her there, her here. Mend moods here. Pink and beige mold moods stay the feet, forgetters, spun threaders, where dots, arcs, host sugars, ampersands of storage compounds, weaving loves, carbon allocators, micro-essays of endomycorrhizal, dappled net of never seen. Don't. Light carriers, don't forget. Fungal tracers, hold back below. Tubes and branches, microbe niche of ground, don't forget her, earth that held her up. Thank you.